The champagne flowed freely at the grand opening of Signature, Boston's newest upscale restaurant. My husband David beamed at the gathered crowd, his arm casually draped around his business partner Jessica's waist. They looked perfect together, both in crisp chef whites, both glowing with success. "None of this would have been possible without my wonderful wife Stuffy," David announced, raising his glass in my direction. "Her grandmother's inheritance made our dream a reality." Our dream. I tried not to laugh at the irony as I sipped my champagne from my corner table. The dream had certainly come true, just not for me. My name is Sophie Marshall, and at 35, I was watching my husband celebrate opening a restaurant with my inheritance money and his mistress. What they didn't know was that in exactly 72 hours, everything would change. "The food is amazing," one of the guests gushed to David. "You and Jessica make such a great team." I caught Jessica's smug smile. At 28, she was everything I apparently wasn't: young, exciting, passionate about the culinary arts. She and David had met at the cooking school where he taught weekend classes. Their affair had started 6 months ago, though they thought I didn't know. My phone buzzed quietly, a text from Marcus, my grandmother's lawyer. "Everything's set for Monday. Are you sure you want to wait?" I typed back quickly, "Yes. Let them have their moment. It will make Monday more interesting." 3 months ago, I discovered the affair in the most cliché way possible. Lipstick on his collar, late nights at work, mysterious text messages. But what really caught my attention were the bank transfers. Large sums moving from our joint account, money from my grandmother's inheritance, into a new business account. When I confronted David, he'd spun a beautiful story about wanting to surprise me with his dream restaurant. He'd been so convincing, so passionate about finally pursuing his culinary ambitions. I almost believed him. Then I found the business partnership agreement. Equal ownership between David and Jessica, with me nowhere in sight. They were using my inheritance to build their future together. What they didn't know was that I'd already spoken to Marcus about my grandmother's will. The inheritance came with strict conditions. Conditions I'd kept to myself when the money first arrived. "Sophie," David called out, interrupting my thoughts. "Come join us for photos." I plastered on a smile and walked over, letting him pull me close. His cologne mixed with Jessica's perfume made my stomach turn. "We did it, honey," he whispered, his breath heavy with champagne. Everything we talked about, the restaurant, the future, all of it. I thought about the future he'd actually planned. The divorce papers I found hidden in his desk, ready to be filed once the restaurant was established, once he'd secured his new life with my money and his young girlfriend. "I'm so proud of you," I said, meaning none of it. Jessica chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. "Sophie, you have to try the creme brulee." I perfected the recipe myself. Of course she had, just like she'd helped perfect every aspect of my husband and this restaurant. I watched them exchange a quick glance, probably thinking they were being subtle. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus. "Final paperwork filed with the court. Everything's ready." I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment alone. In the elegant powder room, I stared at my reflection and thought about the day 3 months ago when I'd learned the truth about my grandmother's inheritance. "The money comes with conditions," Marcus had explained, showing me the detailed clause in the will. "It must be used for the specific purpose your grandmother intended, to start your own business, not fund someone else's." I'd inherited not just money, but my grandmother's business acumen. She'd built a successful chain of boutique hotels from nothing, and she wanted me to follow in her footsteps. The inheritance was meant to be my startup capital. What happens if the money is misused? I'd asked Marcus. His smile had been grim. Then everything reverts to the contingency plan. The money, any assets purchased with it, all of it transfers to a trust under your sole control. Your grandmother was very specific about protecting her legacy. I kept this information to myself, watching as David and Jessica planned their perfect restaurant. Every decision they made, every contract they signed, every piece of equipment they bought with my inheritance, it was all building evidence for Monday. Back at the party, David was giving tours of the kitchen. State-of-the-art everything, he boasted to the guests. Only the best. Only the best of my grandmother's money, I thought, watching him show off the expensive equipment that would belong solely to me in 3 days. "The wine cellar was Sophie's idea," he continued, leading people downstairs. She has excellent taste. Another lie. I had nothing to do with the wine cellar. That had been Jessica's pet project, filled with expensive bottles purchased with my money. I mingled with the guests, playing my part perfectly. The supportive wife, so proud of her husband's achievement. If they noticed my hands shaking slightly, they probably attributed it to emotion. You must be so excited. One of David's culinary school friends said. He's talked about opening his own restaurant for years. It's definitely a dream come true. I replied, watching Jessica adjust David's collar with familiar intimacy. Everything is exactly as it should be. Later that night, as the party wound down, David was too drunk on success and champagne to notice my quiet observation. He and Jessica kept finding excuses to touch each other, to share private smiles, to whisper about their triumph. Stay at Sarah's tonight, he told me as the last guest left. Jessica and I need to prep for tomorrow's official opening. Sarah was my best friend and the only person besides Marcus who knew the truth. She'd been the one to help me gather evidence of their affair, to document every misused dollar of my inheritance. Of course, I said, gathering my things. You two have so much to do. Jessica smiled triumphantly, already making herself at home in what she thought would be her kitchen. Don't worry, Sophie. We've got everything under control. I thought about Monday morning when they'd learn about the inheritance clause, when they discover that everything they'd built with my money legally belonged to me. I'm sure you do, I said, heading for the door. Everything's perfect. Monday morning arrived with perfect clarity. I sat in Marcus's office, watching the clock tick toward 10 a.m. David and Jessica would be at Signature, probably still basking in the success of their opening weekend. The court documents have been served to the restaurant, Marcus said, checking his phone. They should be receiving them any moment. I nodded, thinking about the security cameras we'd had installed. I wanted to see their faces when they realized what was happening. Right on cue, my phone started buzzing, David's name flashing on the screen. I declined the call, watching as text messages began flooding in. What the hell is this? Sophie, answer your phone. You can't do this to us. Should we head over? Marcus asked, gathering the paperwork we'd need. Let them panic for a bit longer, I replied, remembering all the nights I'd spent crying over their betrayal. They made me wait. It's their turn now. When we arrived at Signature 30 minutes later, the scene was exactly as I'd expected. David was pacing in the dining room, his chef whites wrinkled, his face red with anger. Jessica sat at the bar, frantically calling someone, probably her lawyer. What is this? David demanded as soon as I walked in, waving the court documents. Some kind of joke? No joke, I said calmly, setting my bag down. Just the terms of my grandmother's inheritance finally being enforced. You can't just take the restaurant, Jessica interjected, her usual poise cracking. We're equal partners. We have contracts. Actually, Marcus stepped forward. All contracts signed using funds from Sophie's inheritance are now void. The money was never meant for this purpose, and its misuse triggers the reversion clause. David's face paled. Reversion clause. My grandmother left me the money to start my own business, I explained, running my hand along the expensive bar they'd installed. Not to fund my husband's restaurant with his mistress. Jessica's sharp intake of breath told me they hadn't expected me to know about the affair. How long have you known? David asked quietly. Long enough to document everything, I replied. The affair of the misused funds, the plans to divorce me once the restaurant was established. I have it all. This is ridiculous, Jessica snapped, standing up. We built this place. We created the menu, hired the staff, designed everything. With my money, I reminded her. Money that came with conditions that have been violated. As of this morning, Signature belongs solely to me. David slumped into a chair, the reality of the situation finally hitting him. All our work, everything we planned. Like your plans to divorce me. I pulled out the papers I'd found in his desk. Were you going to wait until after the restaurant's first successful quarter, or were you timing it with moving in with Jessica? Jessica's head snapped up. You said she didn't know about that. He says a lot of things, I told her. But here's what's true. This restaurant, everything in it, all the equipment you chose, the wine cellar you stocked, it's all mine now, legally and irrevocably. Marcus started distributing more documents, official ownership transfers, management changes, everything needed to establish my complete control. You can't just take it. David tried one last time. We have reservations, staff depending on us. The restaurant will stay open, I assured him. Just under new management. My management. And us? Jessica asked, her voice small. You're both fired, I said simply. Though I'm sure you'll land on your feet. You make such a great team after all. David stood up suddenly, anger replacing his shock. This was your plan all along, wasn't it? Let us build everything, then swoop in and take it. No, David. This was your plan. Take my inheritance, build a life with your girlfriend, then discard me. I just decided to write a different ending. The next hour was a blur of legal terminology and barely contained emotions. Marcus supervised as they gathered their personal belongings, ensuring they didn't take anything purchased with my money. The apartment too? David asked as he read through the documents. You're taking our home. My home? I corrected him. Purchased with inheritance money, therefore part of the trust now. You can stay with Jessica. I hear her place is cozy. Jessica's face crumpled at that. Her studio apartment was a far cry from the luxury condo she'd been planning to share with David. As they prepared to leave, David tried one last appeal. Sophie, please. We can work something out. I'll break it off with Jessica. We can run the restaurant together. That would have been a good offer 3 months ago, I said. Before I found the divorce papers. Before I watched you build this place with her. Now it's too late. After they left, I walked through the restaurant, my restaurant now. Every detail they'd chosen, every expensive fixture they'd installed, was a testament to their arrogance. They'd been so confident in their plan that they'd never questioned where the money came from or what conditions it carried. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Is it done? It's done, I replied. The restaurant is mine. They're gone. Over the next few weeks, Signature underwent a transformation. I kept the basic concept but refined it, adding my own touch to the menu and decor. The staff, relieved to be free of David and Jessica's drama, embraced the changes. David tried legal action, of course. But Marcus had made sure everything was airtight. The inheritance clause was clear, the evidence of misuse overwhelming. Jessica disappeared from the scene quickly, moving to New York when she realized David couldn't provide the lifestyle he promised. Last I heard, she was working as a line cook in a chain restaurant. 6 months later, Signature was thriving under my leadership. The irony wasn't lost on me. David and Jessica had inadvertently helped me fulfill my grandmother's wish. I was finally running my own successful business. One evening, as I was reviewing the books in my office, formerly David's office, Sarah stopped by. You know what's funny, she said, settling into a chair. If they hadn't tried to deceive you, if David had been honest about wanting to open a restaurant, you probably would have helped him anyway. Probably, I agreed. But they chose deception. They thought I was too naive to notice, too weak to fight back. Their mistake, Sarah said, raising her glass in a toast, to underestimating you. I thought about my grandmother, how she built her business empire through smart decisions and careful planning. How she protected her legacy with that clever clause in her will. She would have appreciated how things turned out. A year after the takeover, I received a letter from David. He was working as a sous chef in Chicago, humbled by his fall from grace. I understand now, he wrote, why I threw away, not just our marriage, but your trust. You deserved better. I filed the letter away without responding. He was right, I had deserved better, and I made sure I got it. Signature became known not just for its food, but for its story. People loved hearing about how the betrayed wife turned the tables on her cheating husband and his mistress. Some called it revenge, but I saw it differently. It was justice, served at exactly the right temperature. Every now and then, I catch glimpses of my grandmother in the mirrors that line the restaurant's walls. Not her reflection, but her spirit. In the way I run the business, in the decisions I make, in the strength I found when I needed it most. David and Jessica had tried to build their dream on my inheritance, never realizing they were actually building mine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about turning someone else's betrayal into your own triumph.